Wife just phoned her husband and the conversation went like this. Wife: you know that Gladiator movie that I got you? Husband: yeah. Wife: well, wind it forward 1 hour, 16 mins and 28 seconds. Husband: right, I've done that. Wife: okay, you see the gladiator at the front fighting the lion? Husband: I can see that, yeah. Wife: okay, well, just behind him. There are two gladiators having a sword fight with each other. Husband: okay, yeah, I see them. Wife: well, behind those two, on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a gladiator holding a spear. Husband: yes, I can see him. Wife: right, those are the sandals I want for my birthday. A couple, both age 78, went to a therapist's office. The doctor asked, "What can I do for you?" The man said, "Will you watch us have sex?" The doctor looked puzzled, but agreed. When the couple finished, the doctor said, "There's nothing wrong with the way you have sex," and charged them $50. This happened several weeks in a row. The couple would make an appointment, have with no problems, pay the doctor, then leave. Finally, the doctor asked, "Just exactly what are you trying to find out?" "We're not trying to find out anything," the husband replied. "She's married, yeah, bang, and we can't go to her house. I'm married and we can't go to my house. The Holiday Inn charges $90, the Hilton charges $108. We do it here for $50 and I get $40 back from Medicare." Bob, an undertaker, came home one evening with a black eye. His wife gasped and asked, "Goodness, Bob, what on earth happened to you?" Bob sighed. "You wouldn't believe the day I've had. Got called to a hotel. A guest had passed away in his sleep. When I arrived, the manager told me they couldn't get the poor guy into a body bag." His wife looked puzzled. "Why not?" Bob leaned in and whispered, "He had a massive erection." "Oh my," she said. Bob continued, "Yeah. I went up to the room, and sure enough, there's this big naked guy on the bed, stiff as a board in more ways than one. So I grabbed it with both hands and tried to bend it down." His wife looked horrified. "That sounds awful, but how did you get the black eye?" Bob shook his head. "Wrong room." A Frenchman and an Italian were seated next to an American in an overseas flight. After a few cocktails, the men began discussing their home lives. "Last night I made love to my wife 4 times, the Frenchman bragged. "And this morning she made me delicious crepes and she told me how much she adored me." "Ah, last night I made love to my wife 6 times, the Italian responded. "And this morning she made me a wonderful omelette and told me she could never love another man." When the American remained silent, the Frenchman smugly asked, "And how many times did you make love to your wife last night?" "Once," he replied. "Only once?" The Italian arrogantly snorted. "And what did she say to you this morning?" "Don't stop." Paddy and Murphy decide one fine sunny day to take their boat out and spend the afternoon fishing. For a time, all is well and the weather is calm. All of a sudden, Paddy and Murphy sail in an absolute unit of a storm, and water begins to pour into the boat. "Paddy, quick!" cries Murphy. "The boat is flooding!" "Worry not, Murphy, I'll get the drill." "The drill? I'm drilling a hole to let the water out." There was a man who had worked all of his life and has saved all of his money. He was a real cheapskate when it came to his money. He loved money more than just about anything, and just before he died, he said to his wife, "Now listen, when I die, I want you to take all my money and place it in the casket with me, because I want to take all my money to the afterlife." So he got his wife to promise him with all her heart that when he died, she would put all the money in the casket with him. When one day he died, he was stretched out in the casket. The wife was sitting there in black next to their best friend. When they finished the ceremony, just before the undertakers got ready to close the casket, the wife said, "Wait a minute." She had a shoebox with her. She came over with the box and placed it in the casket. Then the undertakers locked the casket and rolled it away. Her friend said, "I hope you weren't crazy enough to put all that money in there with that stingy old man." She said, "Yes, I promised. I'm a good Christian, I can't lie. I promised him that I was to put that money in that casket with him." "You mean to tell me you put every cent of his money in the casket with him?" "I sure did," said the wife. "I got it all together, put it into my account, and I wrote him a check." 3 high school girls go to the same bathroom every 4th period, and each time they gossip and spill tea and do their makeup. And each time before they leave, they write a message on the mirror with their lipstick. Sometimes they write the name of the boy they like. Sometimes they draw a hand, giving the world the finger. Every day, at the end of the day, the sad old janitor comes into the bathroom and scrubs the lipstick away. Eventually, after many days, the principal called the 3 girls down for 5th period after a student snitched. The principal takes them to the bathroom and calls over the janitor. There is already the frowning face drawn in lipstick from the 4th period, and the girls looked at it and sneered and laughed. The principal says, "Apologies to the janitor for making him clean up your mess." And the girls just roll their eyes. So the principal says to the girls, "Now watch what you put the poor janitor through every day." And so the janitor shrugs, takes his sponge, goes to the toilet, submerges the sponge in the toilet, comes back to the mirror, and scrubs the lipstick away. Paddy McCoy, an elderly Irish farmer, received a letter from the Department for Work and Pensions stating that they suspected he was not paying his employees the statutory minimum wage and they would send an inspector to interview them. On the appointed day, the inspector turned up. "Tell me about your staff," he asked Paddy. "Well," said Paddy, "there's the farmhand, I pay him 2 hours a week, and he has a free cottage. Then there's the housekeeper. She gets 190 a week, along with free board and lodging. There's also the half-wit. He works a 16-hour day, does 90% of the work, earns about £25 a week, along with a bottle of whiskey, and as a special treat, occasionally gets to sleep with my wife." "That's disgraceful," said the inspector. "I need to interview the half-wit." "That'll be me then," said Paddy. After a weekend getaway, a sergeant returned to the military base only to find none of his soldiers had arrived on time. 3 hours passed before they began trickling in, and by then he was ready to burst with frustration. Deciding to hear their excuses, he summoned each soldier to his office one by one. The first soldier entered, and the sergeant demanded, "Why were you late?" "Sorry, sir, here's what happened," the soldier began. "I missed the bus, tried hitchhiking, and an old man in a horse-drawn buggy offered me a ride. I couldn't refuse, but it was slow going." "Humph," the sergeant muttered, surprised. "I suppose that's understandable," and he let the soldier off. This scenario repeated with each soldier, presenting the exact tale of slow, horse-drawn travel as their reason for tardiness. Finally, the last soldier walked in, and the sergeant, now visibly irritated, sarcastically asked, "Let me guess, you hitchhiked too?" "Yes, sir." "And you got a ride?" "Yes, sir." "On a horse and buggy?" "No, sir." "No," the sergeant questioned, taken aback. "No, sir. It was a 2014 Mercedes, sir." "Then why in the world were you late?" the sergeant demanded. "We tried to hurry, sir," the soldier replied apologetically, "but the road was completely blocked with horse-drawn buggies." A distinguished lady boarded a plane from Switzerland, seated next to a kind-hearted priest. She approached him with a request, "Father, may I ask a favor?" The priest, being the epitome of kindness, replied, "Of course, my child. What can I do for you?" The lady explained that she had purchased an expensive hair remover gadget and was worried about exceeding the declaration limits at customs. She asked the priest if he could hide it under his cassock. The priest agreed to help, but warned her that he couldn't lie. The lady, confident in the priest's honest demeanor, handed him the gadget. When the plane landed, The priest approached the customs officer, who asked if he had anything to declare. The priest cleverly replied, "From the top of my head to my sash, I have nothing to declare, my son." The customs officer found this response peculiar and asked, "And from the sash down, what do you have?" The priest responded with a straight face, "I have there a marvelous little instrument designed for use by women, but which has never been used." The customs officer couldn't help but burst into laughter and let the priest pass. With a chuckle, he said, "Go ahead, father. Next." The priest's quick wit had saved the day, and he walked away with the lady's secret safe.